It was a bright Wednesday morning when I woke up to a scent so foul that it made my stomach churn before I even fully opened my eyes. Half asleep, I stumbled into the bathroom, expecting my usual routine to be mundane. Instead, I was met with a horrifying sight. The toilet water was bubbling violently, like some toxic aquarium come to life. I yanked open the sink cabinet. Nothing worked. The shower was backing up, the laundry drain was gurgling ominously, and even the floor drain near the bathtub looked ready to erupt. At first, I told myself it was just a clog, maybe a forgotten toy or hairball, but I knew my plumbing inside and out. Every pipe, every valve, every clean-out had been maintained meticulously for years. Nothing was out of place. And that's when my blood ran cold. I went outside to inspect the main clean-out in my front yard, and what I saw made my heart pound like a jackhammer. The heavy iron lid that protected my line had been pried open, and inside, someone had poured a fresh layer of quick-setting concrete. My sewage line, the very vein that kept my home functional, had been deliberately and illegally blocked. I didn't have to guess who was behind it. Across the street, standing on her perfectly manicured porch, was Karen, the HOA president. She wore her signature pink blazer over a crisp white blouse, her curly hair perfectly coiffed despite the early hour, and she was sipping a steaming latte like nothing was wrong. Her smirk was infuriating, Cheshire cat perfect. Just 3 days earlier, Karen had barged into my home unannounced, brandishing a clipboard like a weapon. She demanded I pay a $7,500 community improvement fee, claiming it was to fund new lighting and landscaping for the HOA office, a private office that she practically lived in. I refused. I'd argued rationally and calmly that this was misuse of HOA funds. She had leaned in, her eyes narrowing, and said, "Alex, if you don't pay, I promise things will get messy." I laughed it off at the time. Empty threats. I had no idea she actually knew how to make good on them. "Having trouble, Alex?" Her voice carried across the street. The smugness in her tone made my teeth grind. I took a deep breath, forcing calm where panic simmered. I wasn't just any resident. I was a mechanical engineer specializing in hydraulics and fluid dynamics. I didn't just understand how pipes worked. I understood pressure systems, flow rates, and the physics of sewage networks. And Karen had just handed me the ultimate opportunity. I retrieved the blueprint of the neighborhood sewer layout, a relic from when I had helped inspect the systems 5 years prior. It detailed every junction, every gradient, every subtle slope that affected flow. That's when the pieces fell together. Karen hadn't just blacked my line, she had unwittingly created a closed-loop system that connected directly to her own home. Our sewage lines merged just a few yards from the main city connection. The blockage I faced would, if manipulated correctly, force any backflow directly toward her house. But before I could even start planning, I had to verify the layout in person. I grabbed my flashlight and wrench, creeping into the small crawl space under my home. The smell was nearly unbearable, but I followed the pipes, confirming the slope and connections. Sure enough, the junction split in a Y shape. My line was capped, and the other branch led straight toward Karen's basement bathroom. My pulse quickened. The physics were perfect. I paused and imagined the scenario. Karen's pristine pink marble countertops, her expensive silk curtains, her perfectly polished floors, all in direct line of potential chaos. I allowed myself a small grin. She wanted messy? She'd get messy. Next, I went shopping, not for revenge supplies in a dramatic sense, but for equipment that could handle high-pressure water safely. I rented a commercial-grade hydrojet machine, normally used for clearing industrial-scale blockages. I picked up a few bags of compost and dark gardening soil. The mixture would mimic a sludge-like consistency, enough to make an impression, but not permanently hazardous.
Back home, I prepared everything in my garage, out of sight. I rigged the hoses to my clean-out valve, bypassing the concrete cap with a custom adapter I had fabricated years ago for maintenance purposes. I mixed the slurry soil in a large drum, stirring until it had the thick, muddy appearance I wanted. Then came the waiting game. Karen was hosting the HOA board meeting that evening, an event she made sure everyone knew about. The invitations had been posted in the neighborhood Facebook group. I could see the luxury SUVs lining her driveway, caterers bustling in with trays of hors d'oeuvres, and Karen herself, dressed in her white silk dress with her curly hair perfectly set, laughing with her board members in her immaculate living room. The stage was set. I checked the pressure gauge on the hydrojet system. Everything was calibrated perfectly. The clean-out valve was secured, the hoses were reinforced, the physics were aligned. All that remained was the timing. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, I felt a surge of anticipation. This wasn't about cruelty. This was about justice, sending a message in a way Karen could never forget. I glanced at the clock. 6:45 p.m. Almost time. I walked back to the drum of sludge and ran through the plan in my mind. One false move and things could get dangerous, but I had calculated flow rates, pressure thresholds, and safety margins. This would work, and when it did, Karen would finally understand that threats don't go unanswered, especially when the target has the knowledge, tools, and patience to respond. I paused, taking a deep breath of the evening air. Across the street, Karen's laughter loathed across the neighborhood. I allowed myself one last glance at her, pink blazer gleaming in the fading sunlight, before stepping back into the garage. The night was about to get very interesting.
At exactly 7:02 p.m., I slid the garage door down just enough to conceal the glow of the work lights. Outside, Karen's house looked like a magazine spread. Soft lighting, laughter spilling from open windows, silhouettes of well-dressed HOA board members clinking glasses in celebration of themselves. Her pink blazer hung proudly over a dining chair, a symbol of authority temporarily at rest. I put on my noise-canceling headphones, not because I wanted silence, but because I wanted focus. The hum of the machine behind me felt like a restrained animal, waiting. I rested my hand on the activation switch and took one steadying breath. "This is on you, Karen," I muttered. The machine roared to life. The vibration traveled through the concrete floor, up my legs, into my chest. The pressure gauge climbed smoothly, just as I'd calculated. For several seconds, nothing happened. Underground, the system was filling, tension building invisibly beneath manicured lawns and decorative hedges. The pipes were doing what pipes always do, seeking balance, seeking release. Then I heard it, a faint, distant scream. Even through the headphones, even over the growl of the motor, it cut through the air like a siren. I stepped outside and casually leaned against my garage frame, watching. Across the street, a sudden commotion erupted inside Karen's house. The laughter stopped, the music cut out mid-note, lights flicked on and off as if the house itself had panicked. According to the neighbors who later recounted the moment in breathless detail, it began in Karen's downstairs guest bathroom. The toilet didn't overflow, it detonated. A violent surge blasted upward, slamming the lid against the wall as a thick brown wave erupted like a geyser, splattering the ceiling, soaking the towels, and raining chaos in every direction. The ceiling fan, still spinning, became a weapon of mass distribution. Screams echoed through the house. Someone shouted, "What is that smell?" Another voice yelled, "Turn it off!" But it was already too late. The pressure didn't stop at the bathroom. It rolled forward, relentless. The kitchen sink, positioned perfectly in the center of Karen's catered buffet, gurgled ominously before exploding upward. The drain plug shot out like a cork, spraying dark sludge across shrimp platters, crystal glasses, and the tailored suits of HOA board members who seconds earlier had been congratulating themselves on a job well done. Wine glasses shattered, people slipped, someone gagged loudly. Karen appeared at the front door moments later, her white silk dress now a nightmare of stains. Her curly hair hung limp, matted with filth. The confident smile she wore so effortlessly had vanished, replaced with wide-eyed panic. She stumbled onto the lawn, coughing and screaming, "My house! It's everywhere! Somebody make it stop!" Guests poured out behind her, some barefoot, others clutching ruined handbags and jackets, all desperate to escape the smell. A few slipped on the grass, scrambling to get away from the scene unfolding behind them. I calmly stepped back into the garage and shut the machine down. The sudden silence was almost poetic. Within minutes, flashing lights filled the street, fire trucks, police cars, emergency plumbing services. The neighborhood smelled like a disaster zone. Neighbors gathered at a safe distance, whispering and pointing. Phones were out, videos were being recorded. This was going to live forever online. Fire Chief Miller, a stern man with decades of experience etched into his face, took charge. He inspected the damage, listened to frantic explanations, and methodically followed the evidence. It didn't take long. The pressure buildup led straight to the shared junction. When they uncovered the ground near my property line, the fresh concrete cap was impossible to miss. Miller walked over to Karen, who was now wrapped in a gray emergency blanket, mascara streaking down her face. "Ma'am," he said evenly, "did you authorize work on this sewer line?" Karen tried to speak, tried to deny it, but the words fell apart as quickly as her authority had. The handyman she'd hired, unlicensed, unpaid in full, and careless, had already confirmed everything when police called the number on the discarded invoice found in her trash. Miller sighed. "You illegally tampered with a city utility. You caused this backflow yourself." The insurance adjuster arrived the next morning. He barely needed 10 minutes. One glance at the police report was enough. The verdict was swift and brutal. Claim denied. Intentional sabotage voided coverage entirely. Karen's total bill climbed rapidly. Hazard cleanup, drywall replacement, flooring, furniture, professional sanitation, over $40,000, paid out of pocket. Criminal charges followed, fines, court dates, mandatory restitution. She checked into a budget motel that same week as her house was stripped down to studs. The neighborhood watched quietly as the moving truck arrived, hauling out ruined furniture and boxes of what used to be a carefully curated life. The HOA meeting scheduled for the following Monday never happened. Instead, an email went out. Karen had officially resigned as HOA president for personal reasons. Her replacement canceled the special assessment immediately and issued a formal apology to the neighborhood. As for me, I had my line professionally cleared and restored within 24 hours. No damage, no lingering issues, just peace and the faint satisfaction of knowing that knowledge, when paired with patience, is far more powerful than threats. On warm afternoons, neighbors still swear they catch a faint smell when the wind shifts past Karen's house, a reminder, perhaps, that some messages linger longer than others. If there's one lesson in all of this, it's simple. Don't weaponize power unless you're prepared for it to come back to you. Return to sender.